Hello everyone. So maybe we'll be starting in a few minutes. So in the meantime, if you want to share, so especially the participants, if you want to share any expectations you have from this workshop, so we could maybe fine tune a bit along this line. So if you have anything, please feel free to share.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
So I'm Gail, and
Yeah.
I'm just really happy to be here and to learn about circular design.
Thank you.
I'm a fashion designer, and I think it's really important at this time to see how I can put my work out there and still care about the environment and really think about the end life of my product. So that's
great. Yep. So you will have opportunity to discuss, of course, with the panelists at some point. We have breakout sessions later. So if you have anything which maybe you can share your own experiences, how maybe you applied circular design already, or maybe you want to apply it further, maybe, but you're already applying to some extent circular design. It would be great to hear from you, to share your experiences and your good practices.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gael.
Hello, can I speak? Can you hear me? Yes. Hi.
Hey. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Karuna from a brand name called Piale. I don't know if you know about that, but during this confinement,
Of course we know.
Some of you know about, some of you don't. I'm going to share my information on that. Don't worry. So during this confinement period, our business, in fact, is quite slow. It's nothing because we are just closed and you can just sell clothes, right? But we have been following a lot of things like what DNL has been doing, and I personally have been putting everything in order, you know, my wardrobe, etc. And I try to recycle so many things, so many. I have like a lot of clothing now that I need to reprocess. So that might be helping me after confinement to think about that a little more. Because we are an established company already, and we are already working on like new clothes, but we might be creating a new segment, you know, a copier recyclé, if you want. That might be more interesting for our business after confinement, because we really don't know how this all is going to work. And there are a lot of things that I've been like reprocessing, like taking t-shirts and making masks out of it, and even like dresses. I made like clothing for my niece and for my son, and even saris, just like Arad Creation used to do, like use up saris to make like very large maxi skirts. I don't have the example. I have the pictures. I might be sending it to you later on, but I don't have it with me right now because I'm not at home. All right.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you for joining. So we'll have the breakout session at some point. Maybe you can share your own projects. That would be great.
Yes, that would be. Really like to do that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your patience. So I think we make a start. It's 3:10. So if others join along, we waited for 10 minutes. So I think we make a start.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome everyone. So I welcome you to this circular design workshop for the creative sector. And I've titled it as Walking the Talk. So in a view to make it more practical for us, not just to talk about principles, but to see practically how it's applied in the creative sector. So myself, I'm Mahendra Gurchan, and then our panel members for today are Diane, Sarah, Kan, Priya, and Melissa, and we'll be they'll be intervening during the presentation to showcase their own application of circular design principles in their respective fields. And as we'll be seeing in a few minutes on the slide, we'll be having breakout sessions as well at some point, and they'll be sort of chairing these breakout sessions. Now, special thanks to Hafiza and Marine. Hafiza is from British Council Mauritius, and Marine is the digital storyteller for this project. So in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about that. So what's the background of this workshop and where it's coming from? And I would like to thank the British Council UK and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So I will talk a bit on that now. Where does British Council UK and Ellen MacArthur Foundation step in? So a brief overview of the different panelists. So myself, so I'm an academic at the University of Mauritius. I'm involved more in engineering works, more specifically in the building sector. Last November, so November 2019, I was selected to be in London for a workshop on circular design, and this was organized by British Council UK and Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So I don't know if you've come across the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They are actually an organization pushing forward circular economy across all the various segments, be it art, be it architecture, or creative sector. So it's out of this workshop that actually I was sort of selected to be a pioneer from Mauritius and to broadcast the inspiration, the insights, and my experience in London. So as part of this workshop, this is one of the activities I proposed when I came back to Mauritius, but there'll be more sessions, more workshops, especially for school, because I want to raise awareness of on circular design principles. Yep. So I'm just going to present quickly our other panelists, and of course, when they speak, they'll be giving more information on their respective organization or collectives and what projects they're working on specifically. So we have Jan from Fashion Revolution. So I would like to thank her because currently we have the Fashion Revolution Week going on, and she very kindly accepted this workshop to be part of this Fashion Revolution Week. So she'll have opportunity to discuss a bit more on the Fashion Revolution Week and her own work she's doing. And then we have Sarah from The Good Shop. So she's also going to intervene and talk a bit more on the business models that would be sort of aligned to circular economy. Then we have Priya. So she is the founder of Emilioa, and she'll be concretely showing some case studies of products that sort of showcase the circular design principles. And then lastly, we have Kan. So Kan will showcase how he's applying, he's using waste actually for musical instruments. So he's going to have a video to show us, and you see at the start of the, as we're waiting, he actually produced some nice music. We'll also have Melissa, who's going to assist Priya in showcasing some of the products. So at some point, we have some breakout sessions. So these are the topics we've selected. So you have 4 breakout sessions, as you can see the topics, and the respective resource person. So like the first one is going to be Diane, who's going to take care of this one. And the second one, Sarah. The third one, Priya and Melissa. And the fourth one, Kan and myself. So at some point, we're going to break out in four breakout rooms. Now, I would request now each one of the participants, can you send by chat which breakout room you would be interested to be in? We're going to then be able to structure the rooms at some point so that you are in the correct room with the correct resource person. So as we go along, we still have some time for that. But if you just can make a note now of which breakout room you want to be, and send us by chat now your name, your email. Just take down these things: the email, the name, the email, and your breakout room you want to be. Okay. So let's start now with the topic itself. Again, I've put this tagline here, walking the talk here, just to present the fundamental principles of circular design. I've learned it. So I'm from engineering background, like I said, but when I was in London, I was actually, I won't say surprised, but as well, it was like, I learned new things about circular design, which I was not actually implementing in my work. Even if as an engineer or a designer, there are new insights which I came across during my time in London. So I'm very passionate now to share these things with the broad community in every segment that we can have, because I think it's going to be okay. Sorry for that. So I think from what I've learned during my time in London, it has influenced my own work, and I'm sure that if we can broadcast this across the various sectors in Mauritius, it will be very useful and help the making of a circular economy out of Mauritius. Okay, now just few information why we are talking of a circular economy as such. Currently, the way we are using products or designing is not very sustainable. We are mostly following a linear path. So today we're talking about the creative sector. So this is one fact here. If you can just read that, every second the equivalent of one garbage truck of textile is landfill or burnt. So this tells us the extent to which we are currently not following a circular economy, and we need to change that. And this is no different from Mauritius. 1 minute. So I'm just going to copy the breakout sessions and maybe send it by chat, so you can refer to it. So I'm just going to copy that. So I'm just going to send all the breakout sessions by chat, so you can look at it. Yep, so I'm sending it now to everyone. So just look at it and let us know which one you want to be. Okay. So I was talking about the linear model, where we're currently just taking materials from the earth and just making use of it and just wasting it. And this is typically linear economy, and we have lots of issues. So basically, we're reaching the limit, I would say, of it. If we consider Mauritius itself, we hear stories that the landfill at Mauritius is filled completely and we don't have space for it. This is already a very bad sign that we are very far from being a circular economy. As we go along this presentation today, we're going to see options which we can follow, so that we are more okay. So a bit more small video here just to show the so the first one here just showing that just taking materials and just sending it to landfill here, so making use of it at some point, but would like to follow a circular loop where basically I would say ideally we don't have waste. So why do we have a concept of waste? Why did we even come up with this concept of waste? Is because in a way we are not using materials responsibly. Okay? So this is just diagram to show you the result of following a linear economy. So we have these are like car parts, spare parts. This is the beach. It's very important for us to protect our beach, or plastic, a big issue for our ocean, even for land. So all these pictures here are testament that somewhere we are not doing things correct. Okay. Now, since we're talking about the creative sector today, so this is one example which is showing to us a typical workflow where we're going to produce fiber using oil, and of course we have emissions of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And then out of this fiber, we start producing things. So in the linear economy, we are again causing pollution and as well CO2 emission. And when we use it in the same way now, we have to wash our clothes. So we need energy to power washing machines. We use detergents which are sort of set in the ground to create more of harm. So we can see from extraction and use, even after use here, we don't know what to do. So we typically just landfill it or we incinerate, which creates further problems. And if you think about these garments there, if we could make good use of it, actually we're wasting money. If we could make good use of it, we can make a better economical prospect out of it. It's a bit more technical information here, which is showing sort of a material flow here. So we are using over 97% of virgin material in the world currently for the creative sector, for fashion and design. And most of it is being landfill and incinerated, and very few is actually being recycled back to reuse. So the 73% here is a harsh reality, which if we take on the principles of circular design we'll discuss here, we can start decreasing that. Okay, so to underpin a circular economy, the concept of circular design comes in there. So design is actually creating products or services that meet our needs or our desires. Okay. Now, very fundamental here is when you're creating a design at the very start. So if you don't factor in the important decisions, if you go down the line, it becomes very difficult to undo things. If you just take an example out of the creative sector, maybe for your own house, if you're planning a house, and you decide at some point you decided to put a swimming pool somewhere in your project, it becomes very costly to do that. But if you had done that earlier, it becomes more cost effective. Yeah, if your contractor's on site and then suddenly you tell him, I want to have a swimming pool, it becomes very difficult to actually change the plan. So very similar concept. So if we don't take the factors which impact the life of your product, be it in terms of production or use or disposal, at the design stage itself, it becomes very difficult down the line to undo things. Yep. So to underpin now the circular principles, the circular economy, it's a new way to design, make, and use things within planetary boundaries. So we want here to make sure we are not causing undue impacts on the environment or even on people. So it means now, till now, we have been mostly following a linear pattern, and now we are asking the whole world to sort of shift to a new way of doing things. And this is where we have huge opportunities coming up. Like all the products around you here most likely would have been designed using a linear design paradigm. And now we're asking, because we have lots of issues with that, as I've seen earlier. So now we are sort of asking the whole world to shift onto a new systemic way of doing things. And this is where we have this huge opportunity now, be a business opportunity or an opportunity to make changes in the way we do things. Now, there are three fundamental pillars of circular design. If you just look here, so the three fundamental pillars are: we want to design out waste and pollution, we want to keep products and materials in use as much as possible, and we want to regenerate natural systems. Okay, so this is very well represented in this diagram here. These are the three fundamental pillars of circular design principle. And if you look at these three design principles, they don't really prescribe methods at this point. They are just saying generally what are your main objectives which you want to take up. But later we're going to see how these things actually translate into strategy that you can concretely apply in your project. So this is one example where we've applied these three principles here for the creative sector. So if you start here by phasing out substances of concern and microfiber release. So this is a problem in the production of fibers here, where you have microfiber release. So if you can take care of that, and you can use more environmental friendly material at the start itself. And now during use, if you can encourage people to use their fabric more and to reuse it, and when it's done, you recycle things. So you are preventing that 73% of incineration we've seen earlier. And in doing that, you're going to radically improve recycling. And also you want to use resources which are more renewable as part of your production. In part here, using energy. So if you can favor more environmental friendly products like detergents, but also a renewable energy input. So that's sort of a framework that is supporting the circular economy. Like I said earlier, it's a new mindset now we're coming across, and being a new thing now, it means we are tending to say let's reinvent everything. But of course, it won't happen overnight. But definitely, we have here a huge potential to drive innovation in companies or to create new business models and to create new business models for the world. Okay? Now, how to go about integrating these principles to help innovators create more elegant, effective, creative solutions for the circular economy. So now I invite Sarah to share with us because she's involved with a good shop in creating innovative business models, and I would like her to share how she's doing that for businesses, to give examples of how it's doing that. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. So I think I sent some slides, Mahendra.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so first let's talk about the good shop and how we did our design. One thing I want to talk about with the circular design is you want to be thinking not just how we can solve a problem, but thinking about how we can solve multiple problems with the least amount of waste, and where there is waste around that we could then turn into energy. So we started the good shop because we saw that there wasn't an efficient way to easily get reused items back into the economy. So you had an inefficiency between people who need to get rid of stuff, NGOs who need stuff, people who need stuff, and people who want to buy secondhand, or making sure we had quality items getting back into the economy. But when we decided to do this, we also thought we need to be meeting mission goals. So this is more of a social enterprise, but we believe social enterprises in a circular economy are looking more at not just a product that helps one or two people, but make sure that it's helping the whole economy. So we collect items that people donate. We extend those life of goods. We are repairing items, trying to make sure they are quality items that go back into the economy. We sell those in our shop, and then the revenue from those goes directly back into the community. So we provide vocational education opportunities. This again is, we were looking at problems in the emerging economy, and we saw that there were a lot of people who needed jobs who were unable to get jobs. So we also, some of our best employees are what we call empowerment hires, who come from either backgrounds with very little education, or have intellectual disabilities, or are facing addiction. And I have to say, this for us has been a huge success, and that these are, again, let's say something people weren't seeing as a asset that we have been able to turn into an asset. So last thing on business, can we go to the next slide, Mahendra? Yeah. So one thing to think about when thinking about your business, a business model, is thinking about having a positive impact in the environment, employment, and education. These are three keystone items. Actually, what I want to say is environment, employment. So thinking about, you have to have a positive impact financially, right? Your business has to make sense financially. So you have to think about how will I create a positive financial impact, and also socially. So in the Good Shop, it's environment, employment, education, but all businesses should be thinking about, how will we be financially sustainable? How will we have a positive social impact? And how will we make sure we're also having a positive environmental impact, or at least do no harm? That's what I have.
Sarah, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll hear from Sarah again afterwards. Okay, now if we talk of circular design, and now how do you go about it? So if we talk of designing the process itself, it's typical that it's typical that we have to get needs from the customers, and based on that needs, for everyone, whatever sector you are in, you will definitely want to get customer needs, and based on these needs, you're going to come up with concepts, and then you would have to, of course, create your product, and then you would want to test it. So designing is an iterative process where you can see you start by first understanding the requirements of a user, and then based on this process here, you can define what you want to do, and then you make it, and then you release. So you have this iterative part here, which is also something which happened during the linear design process. But what is the issue with applying the linear design process is we tended to focus only on the user. So let's say you have a client and you are designing for the client. You don't tend to think of impacts that would of course need to be factored to be able to follow the circular design principle approach. So if I look at, so we'll come back to this this loop here where we understand, define, make, and release in a circular paradigm, how this works. Yep. Now, one important thing I've just mentioned is the traditional way we were doing things was quite wasteful, because we tended to just focus on the user. So we always do things for the user, and then we stopped here. So we are not so we are zooming in on the needs of a user, but we don't go back to see what impacts would the decisions we're taking on the design have on the bigger picture. That's what we say zooming out. So you would have to keep doing that zooming in, zooming out a couple of times to be able to consider other implications that your design considerations, your design decisions are having on your product. Yep. So we're going to come back to this zooming in, zooming out afterwards. So it's very fundamental in the circular design approach to not just look at the user, but to look at every stakeholder that you would have over the life cycle of the product. So it's of course, the impacts on the environment is important, but the way the users themselves are going to explore, to use your product is very important, and what happens at the when they have already used it. So what do they do with it, and this type of considerations. We're going to look at strategies later. We have 6 strategies that are recommended in the circular design guide, which actually have been used here to create all these materials. I'm going to provide references to all these later. Now, it means if you want to always measure how your stakeholders are actually relating to that product, it's very important to provide feedback loops in your work, so you can always be collecting information to see how you can refine. So if I just go back here, this part here of after you have understood the needs, let's say of your client, then you, of course, you define, you make, and you release. But you don't stop here now. You would have to keep understanding how your product is interacting with the stakeholder, not just your client, but what's happening over the lifetime of product. From there, maybe you might get new needs which you need to consider, or maybe there are new emerging technologies you can consider to be able to reduce the environmental impacts. So this process here goes on and on in the circular design paradigm. You don't just stop at one point. So it could be the creation of a new product totally to cope with an emerging need, or maybe refine an existing product. Okay, now what we are going to consider next are these circular design strategies, which are mentioned in the circular design guide. I'm going to provide a reference to you later. The circular design strategies that are recommended, because out of these 3 pillars we've discussed before, they are non-prescriptive, they're just general techniques you can apply. But what we have seen over many case studies that have come out that sort of are aligned to circular design principles, we have found there are 6 main strategies that are common to them. Of course, when you're implementing circular design principles, it's not necessary that you're going to have all these 6 strategies in place. Maybe you're doing 2 or 3 of them, or even 1 of them. Okay, so let's just look at these strategies. The first one is talking of inner loop. So I'm just going to show you one diagram next. So this diagram, maybe you've come across it. It's showing the cycles that our product go through. So at the top here, we manufacture parts, and then at the bottom here, we have users. Now, how can you actually take care of the life cycle of product? You have 2 main paths you can take. One is the biological cycle you can see on the left here, and you have one which is the technical cycle. Okay? The technical cycle is what we talk about recycling and reuse or maintenance and so on. So this is the blue part here, but we do have a loop as well on the left here, which is talking about biological cycles, because if you leave a product, for example, outside, let's say you're doing composting, this is the biological cycle of it. You could be doing anaerobic digestion. Okay, so this biological cycle is also important to support this circular paradigm. Yeah, and we can also go for the technical cycle here. Now, when we talk of inner loops, it means the closer we are to center here, we are, it's more valuable for us. For example, if we can share a product instead of throwing it away, or we could reuse a product, or redistribute it, or refurbish. So you can see all these things are causing minimal impacts. But the last loop that we have is recycle. Now, maybe one misconception we can have, I would say in my own case here, when we talk of circular design, we immediately talk of recycling. But you can say recycling is the last loop here, which is actually the least favored loop in the technical cycle. We should actually favor this inner loops. This is what this one is saying here. So as much as possible, try to favor the inner loops as much as possible, because they bring more value and they involve less of energy or less of pollution or less of resources actually to rework your product. So as a rule of thumb, the closer you are to the center of a diagram, the more valuable the approach. Okay, so we have amongst us Kan, who you've heard earlier with his musical instrument. So he's someone who has been doing the recycling of waste to create interesting musical instruments out of waste emergence. So I will invite Kan now to talk about his work and sort of inspire us. How did he think about this? And he has a collective, actually, which is going to describe it. Kan?
Yes. So hello everyone.
Hello.
So with some friends, artists and activists, we realized that there was really too much trash everywhere, and that we wanted to do something to have an impact on the community. So we created a collective called Un Océan Vivable, and we organize sea activities for kids, cleanups, expo. We screen a documentary I made on pollution in Mauritius called En Plastique. And I do workshops about recycled music instruments. And so just to have an idea, I'm going to show you a little video.
Okay, yeah, so I'll play the video.